But we start this half hour with a development overnight in special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into possible links between the Trump campaign and Russian meddling in the 2016 election. The New York Times reports Mueller has asked the White House for documents related to former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn.
This would be the first time the special counsel has asked the White House for its records. It comes after Mueller began using a grand jury, a sign the investigation is intensifying. Here with details on that and other aspects of the investigation is CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid. Paula, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's talk about this use of a grand jury. What does that signify here?
A grand jury is a tool that prosecutors can use. It gives them a lot of opportunities to gather evidence. For example, you can subpoena documents, you can subpoena witnesses to come in and testify under oath. And over time, once you gather that evidence, then you can assess whether or not you think there is enough evidence to pursue charges. And if you do, you can then bring all of your evidence before the grand jury to get an indictment.
An investigative tool, really, for Robert Mueller. How much power does he have, and I guess broad scope does he have?
So all of his power derives from the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. And in his order appointing Robert Mueller, he says that he has the power to investigate any ties between Russia and the campaign and anything else that they uncover. Because once you start turning over rocks in a case like this, you never know what you're going to stumble over. One great example of that is, remember General Petraeus? He was charged with mishandling classified information.
Yep.
That was a cyber stalking investigation. So wherever this leads, Robert Mueller can follow.
Is there any restriction to it?
There are some restrictions. He has to have some sort of evidence of a crime. For example, people keep asking me about the tax returns. Can he get the tax returns? Yeah. Well, maybe. If he has evidence that there could be some sort of crime linked to those documents, he can go to a judge and potentially get a court order. But you can't just go places out of curiosity. There has to be reason to collect certain evidence.
When you look at the team that Mueller has put together, what does it suggest about the direction he's going in?
This is a powerhouse team. Decades of Justice Department experience, sterling credentials. But what you're seeing are a lot of people leaving very well-paid jobs in the private sector. And you're not going to do that if this is going to be a short-time thing. This is obviously going to be a long-term investigation. And when you look at the type of work these people have done, you see a lot of white-collar crime, fraud, that kinds of things.
Have we gotten any indication whether the grand jury has heard from witnesses yet, or if they're just gathering evidence at this point?
We know that there have been subpoenas issued for documents, and there have been interviews of witnesses, but it's not clear whether or not those witnesses have come before the grand jury or just been interviewed by investigators.
We often hear, we've heard the president a lot talk about the Russia investigation. In any sense, is he at risk when he talks about it publicly in terms of what advantage that might give the special counsel?
I think it's more of a political question, really. Yeah. Legally speaking, I don't think Robert Mueller really cares too much or is going to be fazed by what the president says. But politically, a lot of people in the polls believe that this is a fair investigation, and they do have faith in Robert Mueller. So if you're criticizing him, I think in the eyes of voters, that perhaps says more about you than it does about the investigation.
Can Robert Mueller call the president in front of this grand jury?
This is a really interesting question, because we know President Clinton, he did give testimony while he did not appear before the grand jury. He really had no choice. That was a unique circumstance. But overwhelmingly, the preference for most defense attorneys is to not put your client in that situation, especially if you think they're going to say something that's going to cause trouble, either by telling the truth or telling a lie. So here the president is not a trained attorney. This is starting to involve his family. So putting him in that situation, it's unlikely that any good can come of that. And it's likely his defense attorneys will try to avoid that at all costs.
Paula Reid, thanks very much for being here this morning.